organization. We have the national organization, which kind of runs a lot of the signature programs and does a lot of advocacy. Their offices are outside Washington, D.C. We have the state office, and then we have the local affiliates. Here in Wisconsin, we have 25 affiliates, and hopefully you live in areas where you know who your NAMI is, and there's an active NAMI, and there's things going on. Of the affiliates in Wisconsin, of the 25, I think 10 of them have paid staff, so a lot of them are just run by volunteers. So we go from having very, very active chapters, such as in NAMI Southeast and NAMI Fox Cities, both have big chapters, whereas then we have other chapters that are being run by volunteers. Who are doing great things, but as volunteers, you only have so much bandwidth. So here's some pictures from the early days of NAMI. These are the women down here on the right. We call them our NAMI mommies. One of them is still alive, the woman on the far left, and she's gonna open our conference next week that we have in Wausau. And here, good, perfect. I was hoping we had this slide. So here are the affiliates we have right now. And NAMI Wolf River Region just opened up this year. NAMI West Central Wisconsin, actually just in the last 2 months, 2 NAMIs merged, NAMI La Crosse and NAMI Trempealeau. They decided they would be more powerful together. So that just happened. Chippewa Valley and Brown in the last year have just hired their first staff. Here in Brown County, there's a program manager now who's amazing. Their office is really close to here. I see some nodding back there. So that's fabulous. Yeah, just there's some new stuff. Sometimes affiliates are more active and sometimes they get quieter. Some affiliates like Lake Superior South Shore does a ton of work with peers, people living with mental illness. Other affiliates like Chippewa Valley does more with people with family members. So it just kind of depends on what your affiliate feels is the need, what's the need in the community, and where they put their energy. Does anyone have any questions about affiliate stuff? Okay, we will do questions at the end. Yeah. This is, I know, we gotta talk fast. So if you're in a teal area, talk to us too. You can reach out to your closest affiliate. And here are NAMI's 4 pillars. So we do support, providing no-cost peer-led support groups offered by trained volunteers for both people living with a mental illness and family members. We do education, awareness, and advocacy are our 4 pillars. Our office has gotten a lot bigger into advocacy. We now have 2 people working on that full-time, and we have a lobbyist at the Capitol, so we are definitely more active in that.
Okay, so now we're going to really get into mental health and mental illness. So just a really quick exercise, shout it out, but what is your perception of mental illness, or what words come to mind when you hear the term mental illness? Anybody?
Depression.
Depression, dysfunctional.
Bipolar.
What was that?
Bipolar.
Bipolar. Trauma. Yes, those are all great words that lead us to our next topic, which is talking about stigma. So, stigma is a set of negative and often unfair beliefs that a society or group of people have about a particular circumstance, quality, or person or people. Stigma often stems from lack of understanding or fear and can lead to great levels of discrimination for those who are stigmatized against. So, many people have negative views about mental illness, and a lot of the words that come to mind can be stigmatizing. Some of these are homeless, dangerous, violent, uneducated, weak, blame the family. So we're really talking about how do we start to fix our language to be less stigmatizing. Excuse me. So how does stigma affect mental illness? So when someone has a heart attack, or they break their leg, or they're sick, they're gonna go to the doctor and be diagnosed with a physical illness. They're gonna get a treatment plan, people are gonna check on them, they're gonna know what to do. Unfortunately, that's not always the case when someone is diagnosed with a mental illness. They sometimes take years to receive any type of intervention or any type of medication, therapy, whatever that may be. And a lot of this is due to stigma and mental health, mental illness, insurance, and we're gonna get into some of that. What we're trying to do at NAMI is to get more people to treat mental illness like a physical illness. We want people to be checking in on you, we want you to have a good treatment plan, and we want this to be kind of like the casserole club. Just like if someone has been diagnosed with cancer, you might have friends that are making you a casserole, bringing them to your house. We want that same treatment for someone that has a mental illness. So the effects of stigma. So stigma and discrimination can contribute to worsening symptoms and reduce likelihood of getting treatment. Effects can include reduced hope, lower self-esteem, increased psychiatric symptoms, difficulties with social relationships, reduced likelihood of staying with treatment, and more difficulties at work. A 2017 study involving more than 200 individuals with mental illness over a period of 2 years found that greater self-stigma or internal shame was associated with poorer recovery from mental illness after 1 and 2 years. Some other things with stigma is it makes people a lot less likely to reach out for help, and we can see this really evidently in our youth right now. Stigma is a form of discrimination. So we have long championed parity and the idea that mental health and substance use disorders should be covered equally by health insurance as other types of care, but unfortunately that is not the case, and people are still struggling to access mental health care. Similarly, with short-term and long-term disability, people are more likely to get coverage for a physical injury rather than if they were experiencing a mental health condition. And then institutionalization of mental illness, a larger majority are more likely to be sentenced to jail time than receive the medical care that they need. All right, I'm going to pass it back to Megan.
All right, let's get into some of this. So mental health can be defined as the way we think, feel, and act, and how we relate to others. So we all have mental health. Some people have a mental illness or mental health challenges. So let's look a little bit into that, because you do hear these words used sort of interchangeably now in this world. And let's look at some differences. So when mental health becomes mental illness, a person may be diagnosed with a mental illness when their symptoms are persistent for a period of time, distressing and causing a significant disruption in ability to function, and decreases their quality of life. So it is helpful to think of these as two separate entities. So we all have mental health. Mental illness. How many of you know someone living with a mental illness or identify like that yourself? Yeah, they're not these shouldn't be things we have to say. And I feel like this is getting better and better in this world. But they're not a personal weakness, they're not by a lack of character, and they're not caused by poor upbringing. They are medical conditions. Some people would like mental illnesses to be called brain disorders. That's a whole nother conversation. And they should be viewed as being treatable and the same as a physical illness like Mary Kate was talking about. So they're common. This is how common. 1 in 5 US adults experiences a mental illness each year. The other 4 out of 5, if we saw from the show of hands, know someone living with a mental illness. 1 in 20 adults will experience a serious mental illness each year. Sometimes serious mental illness is abbreviated SMI, so if you ever see that term, that is what serious mental illness is. Usually it's considered schizophrenia, bipolar, personality disorder, so those are some of it. But it really depends. You know, I'm just talking to somebody yesterday with really severe PTSD, and it was definitely a severe mental illness. Yeah?
Sorry to interrupt. We were just wondering, that 1 in 5 statistic, is that diagnosed?
That is, that's a good question. I'll have to dig into how NAMI pulls up that figure.
We don't rely on diagnoses, it's a lot of
Self-disclosure.
self-disclosure.
Yeah. So, 1 in 6 here, youth experience a mental health disorder each year. And this is kind of interesting, this last one. 50% of mental illnesses begin by age 14. 75% by age 24. So this is really why there is a program going out to the high schools. Mary Kate is the youth coordinator, Actually, she has a program. She goes out to elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. She has a club called Raise Your Voice. It's really important to talk to teens. A lot of times when they're 14, a lot of other stuff's going on. They're just hitting puberty and they're, kind of their freshman year. There can be just a lot of other stuff going on. So if they don't know some of these facts, they might be missing it. Yes?
Is that a continuum that if you're age 24 and you haven't had it, you've only got a 25% chance for the...
It's really, once you hit 24, you're in very good shape. So that's interesting, isn't it? It's kind of interesting. I know Mary Kate said questions at the end, but it is really interesting to talk about. Like Jane Pauley is one that's super interesting. She got diagnosed at like 70. She was very old when she got diagnosed with bipolar, and she wrote a book about it. She might have been more like 55, I can't, but she's still in her career, but older. I mean, it's just been in the last 10 years. So usually once you get past that age, so schizophrenia starts showing up like 17, 18, kind of till about 24, 25. So there's mental illnesses, that definitely hit. And I was diagnosed with bipolar in 1989. And that's another thing we'll talk about, kind of the earlier the better for recovery. So yes, each person will have different experience, even people with the same diagnosis. So they are treatable. Mental illnesses are very treatable, more treatable than a lot of other illnesses. Learning about your diagnosis, getting support from professionals, peer support groups, understanding some of your options for healthcare. There's lots of different programs now. We just had my son in a couple different programs. He had to be in hospitalization and then partial hospitalization. And there is good programs. We're lucky here in Wisconsin to have Rogers. They have amazing programs, and I see some nodding. Yeah, there. So we do have a lot of good programs. We don't have quite as long a wait sometimes as other parts of the country. And involving friends and family in treatment, and the earlier the better, as always. We'll always keep saying that. So in the workplace, this is an amazing figure. It costs the U.S. economy $200 billion in lost income earned. Short-term disability claims for mental health conditions are growing 10% annually, and account for 30% or more of disability. And this is also affecting the family. So this is sometimes too when businesses say, why should we care about this? Why should we worry about this? Because it's really it's affecting all of us. And then we're going to keep going, but we'll have our time at the end for questions.
All right, so now we're going to go into recognizing a mental health crisis and what to do if one is occurring or you know someone that is having one. So a mental health crisis is any situation in which a person's behavior puts them at risk for hurting themselves, hurting others, prevents a person from being able to take care of themselves, and or stops them from functioning effectively in the community. Common crisis emotions include feeling frightened, overwhelmed by negative emotions, and out of control. Some important reminders. Crisis situations do not happen because someone is weak, has cracked, or should have worked harder to get well. We're actually going to talk about some factors that can cause a crisis to occur. A crisis is not an inevitable part of living with a mental illness, so if you've been diagnosed with a mental illness, you don't have to be like, oh gosh, when is my crisis going to hit? That's not something that is bound to happen. It looks different for each person, and someone in a self-defined crisis should never be turned away from services. So what causes a crisis to occur? So there's the external factors, so that's increased stress, loss of someone close or a companion animal, a traumatic event can occur, or a major life change, like a divorce, loss of a job, something like that. Internal factors would be intense depression, feelings of hopelessness, intense anxiety and panic, or feelings of anger. So signs that action should be taken. So extreme changes in behavior may signify the need to take action. So this can look like attempts or making plans to harm or kill oneself, threats to hurt others, verbal or physical abuse, excessive isolation, not sleeping or eating for several days, acute psychotic symptoms, so this is delusion. So a delusion is believing something that isn't true, but they cannot be convinced that it is not true. A hallucination is a sensory response, and paranoia, which is just really, really intense anxiety. And things to note, weight loss and weight gain. So let's translate this into how it might look in the workplace. So this could look like someone missing work often and unexpectedly. Sometimes they're near deadlines or large projects and they're avoiding that work. They're not following typical safety or procedural protocol, extreme fatigue, change in productivity and personality, an increase in alcohol or drug use in or outside of the workplace, exhibiting anxious behavior, sometimes with lack of eye contact, agitation, change in personal appearance, weight gain or loss, change in hygiene, and fear of losing their job or lack of care about losing their job. So when is it time to involve professionals? Is the person in imminent danger? The key word here is imminent danger. So here's kind of the guide to help you. So is this person willing to seek help? If so, you're gonna have them call 911 and explain that it is a mental health crisis and request a CIT officer, that's crisis intervention trained. Is the T trained? Yes. These are officers that have been trained in dealing with someone that is having a mental health condition. This is way more successful than having an officer that has not been trained in this. If they are not willing to seek help, you're going to ask the person if they are willing to call a crisis line. If yes, have them call, but you're going to stay with them, help them, and follow the steps that the crisis call gives them. And if not, you're going to ask if you can call a crisis line yourself, and that person on the line will talk you through the next steps. It's really important when you can to try and call 988 instead of 911. I think 98% of 988 calls, they're able to be talked to and they do not need to involve law enforcement, but there are those times. So when you can, call 988, but if there is imminent danger to yourself, to that person, that's when you need to call 911.
And all the 988 calls do go directly through Green Bay. In Green Bay, let's give them a shout out.
So then let's get into some suicide-related terms. So suicidality is the risk of suicide. Suicidal ideation, this is often called suicidal thoughts or ideas. It's a broad term used to describe a range of contemplations, wishes, and preoccupations with death and suicide. Suicidal behavior, this encompasses a spectrum of behavior from suicide attempt and preparatory behavior. So that would be purchasing or acquiring items that you would need, creating a plan. You might start giving away your possessions, those things that would need to be done to complete a suicide. A suicidal act or attempt, that's an attempt at taking your own life. And then non-suicidal self-injury or self-harm, that is purposefully hurting yourself in a way that isn't going to cause death, but it does cause harm. And a lot of times this is for like an emotional release of sorts. So what to do if someone is experiencing suicidal ideation? So connect with resources. Have them connect with their support network. Do they have friends or family that they can call to keep them safe? Do they have a therapist or a psychiatrist that they can call to set up an appointment? A warm handoff, so that would be kind of getting them connected with support if they don't have it, or have them call 988, where trained counselors can talk to them and connect them with further resources. 988 also has a texting capability, so if they're anxious about calling, I know that is common with some people, they are able to text. And then again, if they are in immediate physical danger, connect them with crisis services for their county or call 911 and request a mental health trained officer. Then it's really important to follow up. Tell them that you want to call them the next day to make sure they are all right, and then actually call them. Studies show that following up can reduce suicide-related deaths. And then tips for calling law enforcement officers. So the language that you want to use when you're calling is a mental health crisis. You're going to ask for a mental health officer or a mental health professional. Some agencies do work with county healthcare workers and can bring them along to calls when it is called for. And who to call. So 988 or county crisis, this is when you're in a mental health crisis, but there is no immediate physical danger. You might be feeling like you are on the verge of, feeling like you might be suicidal or something like that, then you call 988. But if you are in immediate danger to yourself or to others, you will call 911.
right. Okay. Feels like we're going fast, and we probably are, but yes, there's a lot of material to cover, but we're doing great on time. So, some of the resources out there. Here are some of the NAMI resources. Those of you who came in first, in the beginning, did get the quick guide up here. I have extra on that back table. We don't need to take any of those back with us, so please help yourself to a couple extra. We have buttons down there. There's a little card back there too. It's a little trifold. It has 4 QR codes on here. One of the QR codes is our quick guide. We actually just updated this. There's a brand new version on here. It's about 110 pages. You can print it off. You can distribute it to whoever you want. You can call our office for $6 each, which is just our cost. We'll send you some. They're bound and very beautiful. Feel free to share that with just everyone. It has so much information in there. And yes, we just revamped it, and we spent hours and hours making sure all that information is right. So please download that quick guide, and please help yourself to those cards. Another side on here is just getting to our website. But then on the back, we have something called Being Together. Let's see, I don't think oh, here, it's its own slide. Okay, so I'll talk about that next. Some of the NAMI national sites you can access. The NAMI has a helpline. Here is that number. Again, you will have all of our slides. NAMI has something called Navigating a Mental Health Crisis. It's a really beautiful document. It's 36 pages long, I think. Again, everything NAMI, all the classes we offer, everything is always free. All these documents are free. Print them yourself. They're public domain. I mean, we're happy to share with you, 100%. And NAMI also has a very, very well done national resource directory, which is a great place to look for some. Yeah, we had a family call at NAMI Wisconsin, and they needed something really specific about schizophrenia. We looked in this national directory, and there was some really great resources. So they've done a beautiful job with that. This came out of the pandemic. You know, there's a few good things that came out of the pandemic, right? And one of the things that happened with NAMI is, well, first of all, we all learned how to Zoom, correct? And whether we wanted to or not, so some of the NAMI, a lot of the NAMI groups, you know, they pivoted like everybody else, and they started offering support groups and education groups online. Well, some of the people around the state, they're like, you know, we don't have that many people that necessarily come all the time, or we're happy to have people, you know, from some of those parts of the state that don't have a NAMI, or, you know, there's a teen group on there, and if someone wants to go to a teen group, you know, where they're not going to know anyone, or so there's all sorts of reasons why someone might want an online one. Yeah, or just the fact that it's cold and you don't want to go out, and you don't want to, even if you have a NAMI in your area, it might be, you know, 45 minutes from your house. So if you click on the QR code, or just go to our website, and there's a whole list of support groups that welcome people on Zoom all around the state, or frankly the nation. We have people that have kids maybe living in Wisconsin that access the Being Together. We keep it up to date. As soon as we hear a support group's changed, hopefully our affiliate will let us know. We get it changed in there. We're changing it all the time. So yeah, it's just a great place to look for help first, for family groups, peer groups. So check it out. Grab our card. 988. So this has been around a year and a half? Yeah. So this is something, it used to be the National Suicide Lifeline, but that had a longer number. So now it's 988. We hope everyone in the world knows about it now. I should just say the US. And it's 24/7. There's 200 crisis centers across the US. Like I said, the one in Wisconsin is out of Green Bay. They'll connect you to somebody in your area. So yeah, please just remember, they tried to make it easy for all of us. Hopefully we won't forget. So and provides free and confidential support for anyone experiencing a suicidal, mental health, or substance use crisis. So, yeah, it can easily be your first call, even just to check in and say, or 211, if those of you with the United Way number. 988 has some different places you can check to if you're a veteran, or Spanish, LGBTQ. So SAMHSA has a great helpline, Trans Life, the Trevor Project, Uplift Wisconsin. So anyways, lots of support lines being active in Wisconsin and around the country. So it's getting to be more and more, and they really felt like they saw the need for this, and we've really risen to that challenge in Wisconsin. So again, you'll get all this.
All right, disclosing a mental illness. So federal law dictates that employers can't make hiring decisions based on someone's health or mental health condition unless that condition has a direct impact on the person's ability to do the job. You only need to inform a potential employer about a condition or diagnosis if it will have a direct impact on your work. So an example would be a person with severe asthma would need to disclose that information when applying for a job as a firefighter, but not if they were applying for a job as a computer programmer. Similarly, if you have claustrophobia-induced panic attacks, you would be expected to tell a potential employer about your condition if the job required you to regularly work in confined spaces, but not if you were working in an open and calm environment. So how to disclose? Consider what this discussion might look like if you had a physical health issue. A broken leg might require you to stay seated for a few weeks, but would otherwise not affect your job. Starting a new medication for high blood pressure might make you feel tired and less able to keep up with your workload, so you may need flexibility while you continue to work with your doctor and adjust to the treatment. The conversation about a mental health condition should be framed in a similar way. You are not obligated to share detailed personal or clinical information unless it is specifically required to receive accommodations. Be prepared to explain why you can generally perform your job responsibilities but are currently having some challenges. So if you are receiving treatment for a mental health condition, you should discuss your workplace performance issues and goals with your therapist. It is against federal law for an employer to fire you because of a mental health condition if you were otherwise qualified for the position and performing well. Making notes for the conversation can be helpful. So why you need the accommodations or support, what you are already doing to take care of the problem, whether you need to adjust your workload or work environment temporarily or on a longer term basis, and when you expect to be able to return to regular performance if the accommodation is temporary. So what are some reasonable accommodations? So altered break and work schedules, so scheduling around therapy appointments. If you are more of an early bird, maybe you can sign on earlier and log off earlier, or maybe you like to work later into the night and that's when you're most productive, so asking for that altered work schedule. Office environment, so quiet office space or devices that create a quiet work environment. I also know some people that do not like to sit in quiet and like to listen to music, so having that ability. Changes in supervisory methods, written instructions from a supervisor who usually does not provide them, especially if you are not totally great in your auditory comprehension. I know I am not, so I like to have that written instruction so when I'm going back I can look and see and not try to go through my memory and figure it out. Specific shift assignments, like I said, earlier in the day, later in the day, whatever works best for you. Permission to work from home, use of a job coach or a mentor, paid leave and unpaid leave, and then FMLA, so 12 weeks of unpaid leave by law. So these are all things to discuss with your employer when you're talking about your reasonable accommodations. Wow, I think I'm going too fast because you're up. Sorry, everybody. I'm a fast talker.
Wow.
Also down for my next section.
No wonder. Jeez, no
I know,
wonder.
I'm thirsty too.
You can have a sip of my water. Thanks. All right, let's talk about active listening. How many of you are good at this? Let's see a hand. Some nods, yeah. Yeah, we've learned a lot about this more in the last few years maybe than we used to, and we're going to talk about some de-escalation techniques. One thing that's nice when you get started, letting the person you know, who, if you're talking to someone working on active listening, let them know you're not a crisis worker, social worker, or therapist unless you are. And just kind of really clarifying the role that you're coming at. If someone's coming to talk to you at work, obviously they know who you are, if you're their boss or coworker. And yeah, it's kind of a gray area in that middle. It's still sort of interesting, and it's kind of really someone's personal choice if they want to disclose. And then you kick in with your active listening if they come to you. And focusing on what they can do. So yeah, let's look at some of these things. So it's the process in which an individual secures information from another individual or group. The active means taking steps to draw out details that might not be otherwise shared. Using a calm voice when talking, trying not to express alarm, being non-judgmental, that's a huge one. Active listeners should avoid interrupting at all costs. This is what they want to do: summarize and repeat back what they have heard, observe some body language, and try to get that next level of understanding. So, some things to do. Stop what you are doing. Give that person your full attention. Turn your body towards them. Listen. Okay. I think you've all heard this, but it's so fascinating. Now at dinner, you're having lunch with a friend. Mary Kate and I just went up to Tavern on the Sky. It was very lovely. There is a difference. Even if your phone is sitting on the table, even if it's face down, it changes the way you listen, even if you're not paying attention to it. So I think phones, keep them in your purse, keep them in your pocket, whatever you can do. I say just take that off. Take that out of the area you're in. Close your laptop, be able to give that person your full attention. Respond physically and verbally, nod your head. Keep eye contact, make validating statements. I hear this is really hard for you, working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I hear you saying 40 hours is not working for you anymore. So ask open-ended questions. What do you see as a schedule that would work better for you? What can we do as a company to make this work? You know, you can be, you know, do you want to be, throw out some options, you know, are you thinking about that going part-time would be better for you? You know, than saying, yeah, this company has part-time workers, or no, we don't have any part-time workers, and we'd have to go to HR or whatever to see how that would work for you. So offer some solutions, maybe if you know the solutions, offer some resources. Let's see. Yeah, can you tell me more? I have 3 jobs. It's a little ridiculous, but I work for NAMI Wisconsin as education coordinator. I work for NAMI Fox Valley as a parent peer advocate for the Neenah School District, and then I do some contract work with Family Services here in Green Bay. I talked to a woman the other day. She was really struggling and was homeless and had been kicked out of housing that she was subsidized for. And I said, well, where should we start? She said, just ask me questions and I'll answer them. So that's what we did, and I took some notes. And then we finished talking. We were at Starbucks for about 2 hours because she's homeless. Usually I meet people in their home, but that doesn't work when you're homeless. And so I have a favorite quiet Starbucks. And then she said, oh, I really shared a lot with you. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of my superpower. People disclose a lot to me. And she said, I would feel kind of uncomfortable that you have these notes about, you know, things in my life. And I said, let's rip them up. And she's like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, no, don't be sorry. Like, let's just rip them up right now. So we shredded them up, threw them in a Starbucks cup, threw them out of the way. So that was her way to disclose. She had too much going on. She was homeless. She has 3 kids. She has a son with severe mental health conditions. She's overwhelmed. You know, on Maslow's hierarchy, she's right here at the bottom. You know, she could start, but she said, you just ask me, I'll talk. And I just listened to her talk for 2 hours. And then we, made a few steps. And just one or two, she can't do 20 things right now. Her brain is not there yet. So anyways, that is just an example of how I was talking to somebody struggling with a mental health challenge and a family. So maybe you got something out of that. I put my phone away. That doesn't happen at Starbucks. So validate with her. Yeah, she was so apologetic about me ripping up my notes. And I'm like, no worries. They might be sad, upset she cried through a lot of our 2 hours, but it was good for her to just have someone to listen to. Empathize with that person. That sounds really difficult. I can see that you're upset. What can you do? Some of that, just if you just hear that from a person, it's huge. You can tell, my husband's good at doing this. I will not lie. Yeah, he came from like a group home situation. Yeah, sometimes if he just says, yeah, that sounds like a really hard day. That's all I need. Try it with your spouse. So with support, offer them support. What can you do? So what are the steps you can do with this woman? We're meeting next week. I'm gonna help her with SSI, SSDI paperwork. So it's just one little step. She knows I'm available. I said, you can text me if you need to. So what are some of the things that you're able to do? Usually when I meet with parents, I write what I'm gonna do and they're gonna do. And this time I didn't even give her a task. I just took one. All right, de-escalation.
I'll go slower, I promise. So a lot of times if someone is not in a crisis, active listening and talking with them is all you're gonna need to do. But if someone is heightened and you might be feeling like they're on the verge of something, then you're gonna need to throw in some de-escalation tactics. So de-escalation is a process that uses your active listening skills and body language for a result-based approach to safely de-escalate someone experiencing crisis. I've used all of these tips myself. Prior to working at NAMI, I was a special ed teacher, so we were de-escalating on a daily basis, so I can guarantee that all of these tips work.
High school.
High school, yes, high school, and middle school. That was a wild time. So your goals when verbally de-escalating someone, you want to open up clear lines of communication. So like Megan said, you're going to put your phone away, you're going to get rid of all your distractions, and you're going to focus on them. You're going to build trust and validate the person's situation. You're going to get them talking about their situation. You're going to gather the necessary information to share, and then you're hopefully going to come to a resolution by the end of it. So some de-escalation tips. The first one, like I think we both talked about, is securing a safe place to focus on maintaining two-way attention. Eliminate distractions and distracted people. So when you're active listening, you can't totally hang out at a Starbucks, but if you're de-escalating, it's gonna be a really good idea to get into a safe, quiet space. If you feel like you might be in danger, or they might be in danger, it might be a good idea to have someone close by in case you need a second set of hands. But to try to get away from people that might be staring, looking, get into a safe place where they'll feel comfortable engaging with you. Then you're gonna listen for cues for an understanding of the person in crisis. They're usually gonna tell you what they want, and this is your active listening. You're gonna check your attitude, you're gonna throw all the judgment away. You're going in with a clear mind with the idea that you are here to help them, not judge them. If the person is threatening to harm themselves, you do not want to leave them alone. This is when you would start contacting 988, and if you felt the need, 911. And you're gonna use those active listening skills to validate and empathize and not argue with them. That is a key. So our de-escalation techniques, there are 3 things you want to check. Number 1, are their basic needs being met? Are they hungry? Do they need to rest? Do they need some water? We're gonna check all of these things. Then you're gonna give them 2 positive choices. You want them to feel like they have ownership over their choices, but sometimes just letting them free range, it's too overwhelming, it can't really be done. So you're gonna give them those 2 positive choices. Do we wanna talk here in my office where you can sit in the beanbag, or do you wanna go talk in the classroom where we can sit in chairs? Something like that. And then you're gonna wanna check your tone of voice. While they might be getting escalated, you're gonna wanna keep your voice calm, steady, not really show any signs that you might be worried or anything like that. So let's dive into these a little bit deeper. So the basic needs being met. Escalation often happens because someone's basic needs are not being met. A simple way to help de-escalate is to ask, when's the last time you ate a meal? Have you had water recently? You're gonna provide the person with a snack and water, and this can help de-escalate the situation and get the person to pause, breathe, and take care of themselves. Again, it might also be that they just need to rest. They just need to sit down, take a breather, take 10 minutes alone to breathe. Check on those basic needs.
Hey, how often did that help with your high school kids and middle school?
Snacks?
Snacks, water, or 10 minutes? Like
That 80%, absolutely. I always had snacks on deck. That solved a lot of things. Then the 2 positive choices. So in many situations when a person is escalating, it's hard to get them to do something because it makes them feel like they've lost control, or it's hard to get them to decide what to do because it's just too much. It's too much to figure out. So an easy tip is to give them back control by allowing them choices. So some examples might be, sounds like you haven't eaten recently. Would you like a bag of chips or a granola bar? We can't sit here to have this conversation. Would you like to go to the conference room or the office? I think you should be checked out by a clinician. Would you like to call your therapist together or on your own? And then your tone of voice and body language. So as you can see, body language is the biggest chunk. This is totally what they're gonna read off of you. So if you're standing there and you're tense and you're giving off weird vibes, they're gonna pick up on that. So you want to stand relaxed, calm if you're sitting down. You want to stay open, not get into a defensive stance. Next is going to be your tone of voice. Like I said, you're going to want to stay calm, speak slowly, and really don't talk a whole bunch. When someone is escalated, it is really hard for them to comprehend if you just keep talking at them. So sometimes just saying a few things and pausing and letting them have that time to process is also going to be really helpful. And then you'll see that the smallest chunk are the words that you use. It's also really important that after you have handled a de-escalation with someone, that you take care of yourself and you're also debriefing, because it's traumatic for them, but it can also be traumatic for you. So if you can, debrief with colleagues after a challenging situation, possibly discuss it in a team meeting if you warrant it, but make sure to keep confidentiality in mind. Recognize the signs of stress and anxiety, so be mindful of the warning signs of stress, such as shortness of breath, headaches, heaviness in your chest, your raised heart rate, general body aches, and take steps to address it in real time. So it's totally normal if you are trying to handle a de-escalation and you start to get escalated yourself. It's acceptable to have someone else kind of tap in, and a lot of times that can be really helpful, because sometimes all it takes is for that person to talk to a different person. They might just be sick of you. So if you go take care of yourself, it might also be an opportunity to further that de-escalation. Afterwards, you might want to take a longer break if possible, go on a walk, get fresh air. Some people don't like to be alone after they de-escalate. They like to talk it out with someone. Some people do like to be alone to kind of process through what just happened, and then they might be able to open up a little bit more. Are you cutting me off?
Oh,
Okay.
yes. Oh, we have 2 minutes. We were told 4 o'clock because of the time. We have 2 more slides.
Yes, I promise. I went too slow. And then talk about it. So change the narrative. So our takeaways that we hope you got from this is utilize and share your community and statewide resources. So the resources you learned here today, we hope you will take back and share. Lead by example with your colleagues, friends, family, and neighbors, especially when it comes to changing that stigmatizing language. Talk about it, discuss burnout, mental health, and mental illness. Just know that help is always available. Share resources. It's okay to ask for help for yourself, your family, an employee, or a friend. It's tough for all of us currently, and we need to monitor our mental health daily and manage mental illness, and make it a goal to find your work-life harmony. And with that, I will end.
And we know we have no time for questions, but we're not in a huge hurry to get hustling, so we'll say goodbye to all of you, but we'll also stay here.
Yes.